Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Lockwood, and welcome to the Second Unitarian Church. And I'm a member of the church's Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are he and him. Today we're in person at the Admiral, at the lake, and at the 2U Sanctuary, and continuing to meet virtually in Zoom. We ask everybody's indulgence for the complications of a three-part service. We're glad you're here, regardless of your mode of attending. In Zoom, you'll notice a chat feed available where you can say hello, interact, or share your joys and concerns when we reach that time of the service. You can also use Zoom closed captioning through the live transcript option. When we would traditionally sing together and read things in unison, you're encouraged to do so as well, even though you are either masked or on mute. Our voices echo through the world, and so we hear one another if we listen closely and sing with our full spirit. We're paying close attention to COVID recommendations. That could mean changes at any time, but for now we recognize that masking and physical distancing are acts of love and protection. The most recent information is on the Second Unitarian website. We especially welcome newcomers and visitors this morning. Finding a new community and making new connections can be challenging. Please know that we're excited to have you and look forward to getting to know you. If you're new to us today, you're welcome to note that in the Zoom chat or mention it in person during chats after the service. Our worship today is led by Reverend Jason Leiden, our settled minister, along with Jim Simonis, Joy, and members of the anti-racism community. Our music is led by Carl Kennedy and Jackson J. Kidder. Our time together requires a large group to make this possible: the music, the worship, and the technical production. They're listed in the order of service, and we're so grateful to them for their ongoing service to our congregation. I have a few announcements for you this morning. This coming Sunday, Reverend Jason will lead a solemn Canterbury Good Friday service at 7 p.m. The service will be here in the sanctuary and available via Zoom. We'll reflect together on the ancient story of Jesus' crucifixion and connect with stories of crucifixions occurring today. If you would like to participate as a reader in the service, please let Reverend Jason know. Also, immediately following our service today, you can come learn the spirit of life in American Sign Language. Abigail Klein will lead a step-by-step workshop on signing our congregational hymn at 12 noon today in the 2U Sanctuary, and a Zoom option will be available also. And the Social Justice Ministry is holding a watch party of the 90-minute webinar kicking off the Unitarian Universalist UU The Vote. National campaign today at 2:30 Central Time and at the 2U Church. You can RSVP Meg Evans, and it's in your order of service. And in this political moment, we can powerfully show what's possible when we move together as a determined faith community in relationship with movements for justice. I now welcome Jim Simonis to lead our call to worship.
We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a community of children, youth, and adults, a people of many beliefs and traditions, bound not by the specific list of things we believe, but by the values that we share. Whether you are joining us for the first time or for the 1000th time, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God some of the time, all of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. Whatever your race, whomever you love, whichever way you move in the world, however much money is in your pocket, you are welcome here. I invite you now to take a breath in and out. As the music begins, let us enter into our service together.
Searching for my sanctus as God decides. I'm searching for my sanctus as God is standing by.
Thank you. In just a moment, Harris at the Admiral, Joy at home over Zoom, and I here at the church will light our chalices, the symbol of our faith. We light our chalices this morning with these words from religious educator Sophia Lyon-Foss. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling ever growing with an upward thrust for life. Joy and Harris, would you join me in lighting our chalices, please? Please join Jackson in our opening hymn, and those here in person, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and sing it. When I was sinking down
friends to be gathered round, O my soul, to love and to all friends I will sing, I will sing. To love and to all friends I will sing, to love and to all friends who pain and sorrow mend, with thanks unto the end I will sing, I will sing, with thanks unto the end I will sing.
Please join me in reciting our covenant. The words are on your screen. Yes, they are. We covenant to build a community that challenges us to grow and empowers us to honor the truth within ourselves. We will be generous with our gifts and honest in our communication, holding faithful to a love that embraces both diversity and conflict. Called by our living tradition, we will nurture spirituality within a vision of the eternal, living out our inner convictions through struggles for justice and acts of compassion.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Rose, hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
You can be seated. Thank you. Those who are young in age or young at heart, I invite you to join me at the chancel for our time for all ages, if you would like. It's always nice to see you. Hi, Lucas. Again. Welcome, welcome. Gino and Silvio, good to be with you. Max, hello. All right, so a couple of weeks ago, when I was joining via Zoom, we were talking about building, do you remember what we were talking about building next to Lucas's house? A slime factory, yes, next to Reverend Elizabeth Lucas's house. Not very nice of us, maybe, just to decide we're going to build a slime factory. But I want you to imagine that slime factory was, in fact, built. It did happen. Maybe that was okay. Maybe the decision-making process went in the way it should have. It's a little unclear. But what's happening now is that we have noticed that the slime has kind of gotten everywhere in the neighborhood. It is all over the place. And people are trying to get themselves through the neighborhood as they move their bodies in the slime. So if you thought to yourself, what might your body look like? And I'd love if you demonstrate with me, trying to move through, let's say, tens of thousands of gallons of slime. What would it look like? Yeah. Ooh. Check it. Getting rid of the shoe. And getting rid of the other shoe. Socks off. Yeah, it's just a big mess. What else? We can all do it at the same time if you would like. How might you go? There you go. All right, Lucas is going. It'd be so sticky. Like moving really, would you, it's so stuck. It's
Mine is very sticky and stretchy.
sticky and stretchy.
I'm very intelligent and smart.
You're very intelligent and smart, absolutely. Any other ways you might move? Do you think you'd run? Would you be able to run really fast through it?
No, it would be like so slow.
It'd be so slow trying to get through. So one of the things that we're talking about in church right now is how change happens in the world. And change, sometimes it's like a marathon. Sometimes change happens really fast. Everyone's just kind of getting right through, really quick, making change happen. Can you think of change that has happened that was fast? Yeah. Building houses can be fast, absolutely. You have nothing there, then there's a foundation, and then there's a whole house so quick. Yeah, what else could be fast?
Blinking your eyes.
Blinking your eyes, you can blink your eyes really fast. Yes, absolutely. What about change in the ways we treat each other? Are there some times where change happens quickly? Yeah. Love can be really quick. You can love each other really fast and get to know and care about each other really quickly. Absolutely. Sometimes in organizations, in churches, in religions, we try to make change, and it happens a bit more like moving through slime. It can be really slow. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but people can try for many years to try to make things fair, and things might not be fair yet. But it doesn't mean the people aren't trying to move through it. And so as we kind of go through our slime factory slime, sometimes it's going to be pretty tricky, and we're going to have a hard time moving our bodies through it. But we keep doing it anyway, trying to get our feet clean, trying to get where we need to go. And that's what we're talking about with our religion, Unitarian Universalism, seeing what changes we need to make so that we can be the best religion that we can be for who we are. Yeah.
You need a bath to make your feet clean.
A bath to make your feet clean, absolutely. There's ways in which we do things and then stuff gets on us and we want to get it off. And that's also kind of like community. Sometimes things get on us and we want it off. Well, that's the conversation we're having right now, these days, about making change. Fast change, slow change, all the change in between. And so hopefully, yes, like glaciers moving, right? That's really slow. Hopefully we're not moving that slow. But it is time for you all actually to head off to class. So we are going to sing together as you head downstairs. Thanks for hanging out with me up here. Each year, we all make a commitment, a pledge to support the shared ministry of this, our beautiful church community. And each Sunday, we take a collection so that we can share with those who are doing justice work well beyond our walls. While not everyone is able to be together in person, we can still contribute generously. And in a moment, you'll see a phone number on your screen at home or our screen right here. And you can take out your phone. It's a good time at church to take out your phone. There aren't many other times where it's appropriate to take your phone out at church, but this one, excellent. And you can follow those prompts and make your contribution. For the month of April, we are sharing our plate with the Chicago Eco House. And this morning we have a brief video clip to watch.
The inner city of Chicago is rough around the edges, but you'd be surprised what could spring up when you nurture it and you feed it some life. Chicago Eco House, based on the south side of Chicago. We take over vacant lots and we turn them into solar-powered flower farms that creates jobs for at-risk young people. I'm Keelan Blackwell, president and founder of Chicago Eco House. We do really care about growing in a way that is sensitive to Mother Nature. We teach, our staff the way you really treat the environment is the way you're going to be treated as well. This is my life. My family's involved, my kids are involved. My wife Hannah is our lead florist. So after we harvest our flowers, they get processed at our flower shop, and then we sell them all across the city.
They're beautiful.
A lot of the most beautiful flowers we grow do very well in adverse conditions, and that's just like the people here.
Now, I invite you to join me in reading our Offertory Words. The words are printed in your order of service and are on the screen. This church is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm it and enable its participation in the larger world around us.
I invite you now, wherever it is that you are, to join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation. And let us start by breathing together. As you're breathing in and out, I invite you to relax the muscles in your neck. Allow those intrusive thoughts to just pass away. Be present to this moment. Maybe unclench your jaw. Relax the muscles in your shoulders. Begin in thanks. Thankful for the breath in our lungs, the beauty of our earth, and the strength of our community. We hold in our hearts those who care for family in ill health, those who live with grief or chronic pain, those struggling with addiction or illness, seen and unseen. We are with you. For parents and teachers and all those whose primary spiritual practice is the care of children, we are with you. We pray for our neighbors in prison, for those who are struggling to stay afloat in the midst of poverty. We are with you. We pray for all those living in harm's way. We pray for our planet, and commit to work that will lead us away from the harms of climate chaos. As war grows and grows around the world, we pray that wisdom, compassion, and empathy guide the leaders of our globe. May they and we be instruments of a just and lasting peace. Our lives are truly blessed by those who knowingly, with curiosity and courage, face their final days. Into this, our shared silence across space, I invite you to speak the name of anyone you wish to lift up into the loving support of this community. With our deepest compassion, let us hold in our hearts those named and unnamed, those remembered and those forgotten. Let it be so. Amen and blessed be. I would at this time light 2 candles, but forgot to bring them forward for us. So we will light 2 candles in our hearts before we light many candles around us. And at the Admiral, Harris will light 2 candles, one representing the joys and celebrations we are experiencing right now, and another representing those concerns and sorrows that weigh heaviest on our hearts. Excuse me. As we return to our congregational ritual of lighting candles for our joys, concerns, and sorrows and celebrations, we want to continue to maintain our safety and comfort with each other. In the sanctuary, in a moment, you will be invited to come forward and get a candle for myself or one of the ushers and light one of the candles on either side of the pulpit for you. For those of us at the Admiral, I invite you to come forward and take a pebble from one bowl, hold it tightly in your hand, putting your energy into the stone, and then, knowing your joys and sorrows to be shared by this community, let it go lightly into the other bowl. And for our friends on Zoom, join us by sharing your joys and concerns in our chat window. all of these, our shared joys and sorrows, close to our heart. Things are a little different. We're doing a lot of things a little different with our services lately, lots of different liturgy style. And today, that is happening again. And rather than just 2 readings, we have some reflections from the Widening the Circle of Concern reading group that had been meeting here at 2U. And we will start off with Megan Dunning.
Thank you, Reverend Jason. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name's Megan Dunning. I co-chair Second Unitarian's Anti-Racism Committee with Curtis Smith, who you'll hear from shortly. Part of the Anti-Racism Committee's charge from the board here at 2U is recommending and reviewing resources and programs to address oppressions, to promote multiculturalism within our Second Unitarian community. Over the course of 2021, the Anti-Racism Committee led a reading group for the 2U community that nearly a dozen people participated in over the course of the year that discussed the material in Widening the Circle of Concern. This is the report from the Unitarian Universalist Association's Commission on Institutional Change. It discusses structures of power within Unitarian Universalism and the Unitarian Universalist Association, particularly as they relate to inequities in our faith experience among different races. This commission was formed out of the painful awareness raising that took place in 2017 when a courageous voice among our Unitarian Universalist leaders of color spoke out about unfair hiring practices within the Unitarian Universalist Association. Out of this whistleblowing came accusations, later founded, of hiring patterns that reinforced a white supremacy culture, hiring white individuals to leadership positions and people of color to positions with less influence and less capacity to shape the course of our faith and association. A series of resignations within the leadership of Unitarian Universalism followed. This painful awakening to the fact that broadly Unitarian Universalism was still working to live up to the commitment the faith had made more than 20 years before to become an anti-oppression, anti-racist, multicultural faith became an opportunity instead to tend to the roots of that issue in our association and our congregations. To consider new ways of doing leadership, of doing shared ministry, and to re-examine what we as a faith movement stood for. From this awakening, the Commission on Institutional Change was appointed and proceeded to bring together Unitarian Universalist leaders of color to share their insights into how the association could continue moving forward in the midst of another racially charged moment that we have all been experiencing the last several years. The results of these conversations and many subsequent conversations are the Widening the Circle of Concern report. It summarizes the pain and the learnings that consulted Black, Indigenous, and people of color within our faith identified. It opens by saying that what is at stake is nothing less than our future, our faith's future. It compiles these observations from multiple shared experiences into recommendations for congregations in multiple areas, in our theology, in our governance, in our congregations and communities, our hospitality and inclusion, how we live out our values in the world. It shares recommendations for our religious professionals, for our education, for liberation, for our innovations, for our risk-taking, our restoration and reparations, and our accountability and resources. After a year of reading and discussing the recommendations in this report, the reading group members would like to share their reflections for the 2U community that we felt emerged from our reading. We'll share some of them today. We'll share some of them in months that follow in many formats. One essential reflection as we continue the long work that we as a congregation have been committed to for many decades of becoming a truly welcoming, inclusive, and multicultural community. One recommendation is that we formally recognize that prioritizing the perspectives of those who have experienced oppression and the lessons we can all learn about being truly welcoming into our theology. We join congregations and communities from around the country in recommending that Second Unitarian continue to live out our long commitment to working towards becoming a welcoming, inclusive, multicultural congregation by adopting the proposed 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism into our shared covenantal principles, which you can see in the back of your order of service. We propose that we adopt the 8th principle, journeying towards spiritual wholeness, by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and others, and our institutions. You'll also hear recommendations from 3 other members of the reading group, Curtis Smith, Lynn Lockwood, and Janet Lockwood. While you hear them in our different voices, these reflections echoed up again and again from multiple members of the reading group over many months.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you. My name is Curtis Smith, and it's with great joy and deep appreciation that I serve on the Anti-Racism Committee and the Capital Campaign Committee. The challenges of the past 24 months have shown our church the need for new ways of being as a congregation. These new ways call us to increase our flexibility, engage deeper and wider view of inclusion. As part of the Widening Circle Concern reading group last year, one of the purposes was to glean insights from the report's larger recommendations and then discuss, brainstorm ways in which these suggestions might apply here in our own church. There was a lot of good ideas and we had thoughtful discussion, but the section on innovations and risk-taking caught my attention. There were 4 large recommendations that amplify the need to create inclusive, equitable communities who are spaces, but there was a cautionary note. People and communities who are at the forefront and front runners of innovation in combating racial inequality and developing practices of equality, innovation, and diversity have traditionally faced barriers when what was needed is more support. So our conversations focused on part of it, on the capital campaign itself and how we, our congregation, might move our congregation towards a more inclusive space. So the good news is that we are doing just that. For one, the outside, replacing the roof, tuck pointing, and doing exterior improvements signal the vitality of this congregation. All are welcome to enter it, find hope and renewal, and discover ways to contribute to the world. The other part, the inside, inclusiveness increases with a new elevator, 21st century audio and visual and virtual technology, new flooring, flexible seating, and in our heart ensures everyone's comfort and safety, as well as the gifts of nice looking space and peace. What was clear from the Capital Campaign Steering Committee's work as well as our congregational voices, that this capital campaign was not for ourselves alone, rather a campaign to build a more inclusive future for all of us. But a question was raised during our Widening Circle Concern reading. How will this capital campaign reflect 2U's racial justice, anti-racism, and anti-oppression work? So the following recommendations emerged from our discussion, and I am happy to say that a lot of it I think we are moving towards. But we would continue to like to see. First, the Board of Trustees and the Capital Campaign Steering Committee commit itself to viewing all important decision-making through a racial justice and anti-racism and anti-oppression lens. Although this effort is never complete, we have identified several areas in which we as a congregation can ensure that the campaign reflects our values. One, the Capital Campaign Steering Committee and 2U Anti-Racism Committee should be charged with examining campaign processes for unconscious bias and will regularly report to the Board of Trustees regarding racial justice, anti-racism issues. 2, the church adopt a vendor policy through which prospective contractors will be asked to respond to specific questions about equity within their own organizations, including ownership, employment, and job assignment. The answers of these questions will be factored into the vendor selection process. And then 3, As we move from fundraising portion of our campaign to the actual implementation, an established process that provides an ongoing consideration of how the internal appearance of the church contributes to or detracts from creating a space that welcomes people of diverse backgrounds, traditions, and abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Change starts with an idea, but an idea cannot progress without action. We at 2U and, excuse me, in our personal lives can sometimes inadvertently become too inwardly focused and miss opportunities to learn and grow outside of our circle. Building mechanisms to engage more with our own congregation, but also connecting with different faiths through visiting pastors and learning what work they're doing in the areas of anti-racism and anti-oppression, and to expand our scope of activities. Developing a clear system of sending representatives to the General Assembly or to regional gatherings to understand what they are doing to widen their own circle of concern. Reaching out to engage with other groups like Community Renewal Society, the Lighthouse Foundation, or the diverse and revolutionary Universalist, Unitarianism, multicultural ministries. These groups are rich resources to gain broader knowledge and understandings of the types of challenges being addressed and how we can incorporate them into 2U's work. It's through these groups that I had the honor to watch Reverend Otis Moss III speak on Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday, who will pay reparations on my soul. And it was a game changer for me. He took me to school. And that was the result of just tapping into a video on the Community Renewal Society. So outreach to our Latinx or African American communities, American Indian communities, Chinese American communities, to find a point of connection where we can work with other like-minded people and organizations in those communities to widen our circle of concern.
Hello, I'm Janet Lockwood, a member of the Widening the Circle of Concern study group, and I want to talk about several other recommendations we had, in addition to the ones you've heard already this morning. What became clear as we moved through the readings is that all of the members in our group expressed a desire to live our UU values in the world, from within 2U and outside of 2U in the community and in the city of Chicago. Our goal of the group is to infuse anti-racism efforts throughout 2U, in committees and ad hoc groups, at the board and council level, and within the congregation. And at the same time, we want to act and work in the larger world around us, as we say. Here's a summary of some of our recommendations. We recommend committees place anti-racism and anti-oppression efforts at the forefront, viewing their work through the lens that Curtis mentioned, through the lens of anti-racism and anti-oppression. We recommend convening an annual meeting on 2U's anti-racism work, a state of the church meeting, if you will, at which the board chair would report on 2U's anti-racism and anti-oppression work throughout the year. Also at that event, the board chair perhaps would present honors or awards to recognize committees or groups that show sustained commitment and results. We recommend that 2U undertake a radical hospitality initiative to expand outreach to people attending 2U services for the first time. We recommend, as Linton mentioned, strengthening our anti-racism work by involvement with and support of Drum and Blue in the church and in Chicago. We recommend outreach to the Latino communities and to community organizations on the south and west sides. And just as a personal note, I do want to talk about having joined UU and sort of why I joined it. And it's my belief that anti-racism work is not an event or a program. It's a journey with justice as its end goal. And so there's another element underpinning the work that's vital to me to recognize and experience as a UU member, and that element is joy. Experiencing joy is a decision to give life meaning through hope, purpose, and community. Joy is an act of defiance in the face of a difficult, unjust world, a defiance where compassion, creativity, and faith can flourish. Anti-racism work is joyful work. I experienced that in the Widening the Circle of Concern group under Megan's deft leadership. And when we act accountably towards social justice for all and live the promise of Unitarian Universalism.
Thank you all so much, and we will continue to look forward to hearing your visions, ideas, recommendations, and thoughts as we incorporate that into our worshipful way of being with one another. Let us now hear our anthem.
Before I sing this next song, I'd like to teach a short melody that I want you guys to sing with me, if you will. It goes like this. We got to do better. 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 Great. I hear some harmonies. That's awesome. Okay. So now we're gonna sing this song, and it's gonna come in that melody at the end, and I'll cue you guys, and we're gonna sing together. It's gonna be great. Okay. I know I haven't been around, and though I've been in town, I've kept my glance at the ground. Why won't you watch? I'm looking out. Where have you been all this time? Eyes pointed in, it's a crime. Standing by. Standing by. Look where we are from where we came. We ain't so far from yesterday. Still guilty of those sins today. Blood on the leaves, a bad taste. One we just cannot rinse away. standing by. We got to do better. We got to do better, standing by. We got to do better. One more time. We got to do better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It can be tricky to hear that our religion doesn't always live up to what we want it to. It can be tricky to come together and say, we have work to do that is anti this, anti that, and still know that this is a life-affirming, transforming, giving tradition. And yet Unitarian Universalism as one religion is still pretty young. 1961, our two ancient traditions came together to create one religion. And since then, there has been a constant need to transform, to change, to grow, to live into the possibility of who we affirm ourselves to be. We've talked in the past about how there are those injustice movements who speak in religious language about creating the kingdom of heaven on earth, something Dr. King would often talk about. And in his last sermon, talking about seeing the promised land ahead, but knowing not how and when we would get there. This anti-racism work, anti-oppression work that we are doing as Unitarian Universalists is not an anti-Unitarian Universalism. It is very much so a pro-life-giving, life-sustaining, life-transforming, authentically multiracial and just Unitarian Universalism. And the truth is, we've never seen that before. The truth is, we haven't gotten to have it in its entirety for our whole religious community. We've reached for it. We've had resistance to it. We've reached for it again, moving kind of like through slime. Because what is white supremacy culture, if not slime? And there is a lot of it. And there was both a lot of consent to bringing it in and resistance to it from the get-go. I want to share a poem from, this is the report, Widening the Circle of Concern. It's also available in its entirety online, and you can read it. But this is a poem included in here from Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, who was both a Unitarian and an African Methodist Episcopalian. And she writes this on the eve of the Civil War. Take sackcloth of the darkest dye and shroud the pulpits round. Servants of him that cannot lie sit mourning on the ground. Let holy horror blanch each cheek, pale every brow with fears. And rocks and stones, if ye could speak, ye well might melt to tears. Let sorrow breathe in every tone, in every strain ye raise. Insult not God's majestic throne with the mockery of praise. A reverend man whose light should be the guide of age and youth brings to the shrine of slavery the sacrifice of truth. For the direst wrong of man imposed since Sodom's fearful cry, the word of life has been unclosed to give your God the lie. Oh, when ye pray for heathen lands and plead for their dark shores, remember slavery's cruel hands make heathens at your doors. I think of this as so relevant to today, not necessarily because of the ongoing legacies of slavery, though they are certainly part of it, though because of the ways in which religion, all of them, all of our religious communities, at times fail to live up to what we believe it could be possible to be. Both Unitarian and Universalist ancestors of ours perpetuated white supremacist ideas around slavery. And the Christian institution, which claims to believe in liberation for all, was used constantly as a justification for enslavement. But that did not mean there wasn't kernels of truth and beauty in Unitarianism, Universalism, and Christianity, but rather that the anti-movements within it, the abolitionist Christians, the abolitionist Unitarians and Universalists were using their voice to say, we can be something else. We can still reach into the roots of our tradition, find beauty, and resist our contradictions. 19th century Universalist Edwin Markham wrote a poem that I think fits well here. He drew a circle that shut me out. Heretic, a rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. What does it look like for us to widen our circle of concern? What does it look like to draw a circle that is expansive? How do we at 2U wrestle with what it means to be an anti-racist, multicultural, anti-oppressive institution in the city of Chicago? I know for myself as a white clergy person, there are specific responsibilities I hold serving a predominantly white, though not entirely white, institution that is striving to live into the fullness of who we are. There's a theologian named James Perkinson who speaks to me quite a bit of this, and he wrote a book in response to Black liberation theologians who said that white theologians were not doing the work. That white theologians were listening, maybe hearing what was coming out of Latin American liberation theology, what was coming from womanist Black women's theologies, but were being lazy, letting Black and brown, indigenous, Asian Pacific Islander folks do the work, and the white folks got to sit back and listen and just hear and not necessarily take steps forward in doing what was necessary to transform. So often, anti-racism work happens at the expense of people of color for white people's benefits to change and learn and grow. And so how do we do anti-racism work in a different way that makes it so that white folks, those of us who are white, are stepping up and are doing the work that we are called to do? And so James Perkinson, in his book, White Theology, Outing Supremacy in Modernity, very academic book, but though I want to share a chunk of piece with you. The condition for the possibility of white theologians beginning to speak of race cannot be simply said. It implies a torturous, lifelong journey that can only be adumbrated, not spelled out. It means returning to the arc of American history, to the memory so carefully forgotten of red skin subjected to ruse and rage, of blood spilled and gold taken, of land pillaged and village burned and children forcibly removed from family, of residential schools and reservation rules and raids of resources and culture continuously, of brown skin subjected to whole-scale blackening, of ankle and arm shackled body sold and surplus enjoyed, of neck noosed and knuckle severed and cotton claimed for a cheap dime, of gullets garroted with cheap wine, lungs tobaccoed, hopes sold dope, heads cracked, kids criminalized into a prison system that is now the largest employer in the land, of yellow skin and tan skin and olive skin, all likewise skinned and scanned and scammed until the white man emerged from the dark age as the new titan of the world clan, building towers, boasting whiskey sours, ripping flowers from their beds for the sake of the concrete castle of a fiction called Wall Street. How does one go back through all of that? I can only venture that until the resources are shared, any word spoken will be smokescreen. And until the white body writhes with red rage, until the white heart heaves with black tremors, until the white head bows before yellow dreams and tan schemes and olive screams for a different world, any communion claimed will be a contrivance of denial. A theologian speaking of resurrection in a body not bearing the scars of its own crucifixion, impossible. What does it mean for us to speak truth over and over again when it's uncomfortable, when it's hard, and when it is so incredibly necessary? In the Christian calendar, today is the start of Holy Week, and we'll be having our own Good Friday service here at 2U later this week. Perkinson is writing about a Christian theology, and as Unitarian Universalists, we can hear his message in a way that meets our own theologies, whether you consider yourself connected to Christianity or not. The story of Jesus may not resonate closely with you, but the need to speak of liberation from a place of knowing is essential. Speaking of resurrection in a body not bearing the scars of its own crucifixion, impossible. What is your crucifixion? Perkinson is writing specifically about the need for anti-racist theologies, and he is responding, as I said, to the call from Black liberation theologians for white theologians to ponder the possibility of authentically creating liberation theologies that have not just listened, but promised to act, to give life to new possibilities. And so, from the report that we have, one of the pieces that we have to wrestle with is this question about justice making. The way we do justice as 2U, as Unitarian Universalists, and how we root ourselves in it. A very specific quote from the report is that justice making is not a substitute for coherent theology, and faithful justice making requires a liberatory theology. And so we are talking about our 7 principles over and over right now, going through them to understand them better. Those are part of shaping and creating our individual and collective theologies. And so my hope for us as we listen to our team here at 2U and to those working on transforming Unitarian Universalism at large, that we are figuring out what our theology tells us about justice. What do you believe about dismantling white supremacy? What is in your core? What moves your spirit to create the world that we know is possible? A world that lives only in our imagination because we have not yet seen it. And a liberatory theology does not mean that we have to have the same theology. We know that our lived experience is essential for creating our theologies. For those of us who are white, we entered into this differently than those of us who are Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, Arab. That given that our lives are diverse, it is impossible that we will have the exact same theology. And yet our Unitarian Universalism can give us a container to hold it with liberation. This report centers around the idea that if our theology only has individualism and freedom to offer, then the theology we have is not going to be sufficient for our 21st century world, that we fall short of offering a space for transformation and growth. And so in our anti-racism, anti-oppression, our antis, we also are giving life to something new by denouncing and enunciating. And so let us enunciate liberation together. Let it be so, and amen.
Please rise and join us with hymn 128.
Thanks and praise, for all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, we work in its rewards. For hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. And all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for fears, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for faithful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use, who build the common good and make our own days glad.
I invite you to rest your hands across your hearts or clasp hands with those you're sharing space with right now and hear these words of benediction from former UUA President Reverend Peter Morales. O Spirit of love and life, help us to know that we are your people, bound together by our collective memory and, more importantly, by our shared aspirations. We are not perfect. We mess up. Sometimes we talk too much. Yet we are drawn together by what we love, what we hold sacred, and a vision of what we may create together. Tender and gentle Spirit, guide us, inspire us, embolden us, for our work, your work, O Spirit, is not yet done. Go in peace, my friends.